So I have with me today my friend and a neighbor. I had to get over because I kept saying last week, I was like, yeah, my neighbor. I was like, well, he's my friend too. I was like, we are friends. I was like, so Morgan, welcome, man. What's going on?
It's nice to be here.
Yeah, how you doing?
Pretty good.
Good.
Pretty good.
Yeah, so Morgan and I actually went to high school together.
Yeah.
And we were, well, I don't know, some of our friend groups kind of hung around each other or whatever. I was, my style or whatever was very fluent in high school. You know? I might be wearing big belt buckles and stuff one day and then just full on goth like the next week.
The whole range of it.
The whole range. So anyways, but yeah, so
weirdo.
I know, man. I went through all the phases. I did. I tried them all. So
You got to find out who you are.
yeah,
That's
you
right.
know, skateboarded, all that kind of stuff. Tommy wanted to be a skateboarder.
Yeah, I was too fat to skateboard.
Loved it.
Too fat to thrash.
Yeah. Well, y'all had skateboard. Didn't you buy another skateboard not too long
Yeah,
ago?
I've been skating for a little bit. I just picked it back up. I had a friend who wanted to. He was like, I want to learn how to kickflip. So I was like, I'll teach you. And
Yeah.
then,
I remember y'all coming down to the church because you
Yeah.
was like, hey, can we go down there? I was like, yeah, just film if you get any gnarly falls.
Yeah.
I don't know if he learned how to kickflip yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if he's watching this, I don't. Maybe you can tell me or something.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. So anyway, so Morgan, one of the cool things, which I talked about in the last episode, you know, like you and I have conversations all the time.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, like I don't ever, you know, a lot of times I don't go into detail about our conversations, but I'll talk about like, oh yeah, Morgan, I think Morgan sometimes like he looks out his window to make sure I'm not outside because he knows if I'm outside, he's going to end up in like a 45-minute long conversation.
No.
Yeah. You know what I said?
Look, he'll go to walk his dog and then not even walk his dog because he's been out there for 30 minutes talking to me and he's like, all right, well, I got to go.
I enjoy our conversation.
No, we do. We have really, really good conversations. We actually found out we kind of agree on a lot of like doctrinal things or whatever that we'd had no idea.
Yeah,
because it's yeah.
Don't talk about that stuff. And then it's like, hey, you think that? I think that.
Hey, what do you think about
Yeah.
it? Yeah, we haven't delved into that stuff yet because we didn't want to run everybody off before we got started.
I got you.
One day though, we'll come back and revisit those conversations. But I was telling last week, I was telling everybody about the one time you and I were talking, and I'm pretty sure I was getting back into mountain bike riding, and I was out there fiddling, like cleaning up or doing whatever. And you come out and we were talking about it, and we were just talking about bike riding. And then you told me the story. You were like, "Yeah, this one time when I was I think you were in Africa,
Yeah.
And you were like, "Yeah, I was out in the bush and I got bit by a cobra, and I had to ride a bike like 10 miles to the doctor." And I was like, wait a minute. Like, you're not just going to go by the whole statement, I just got bit by a cobra, like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
Or no, we maybe not was talking about that. I think we were maybe talking about the copperhead I
I
killed.
think it was the snake we found in the bush.
I think it was.
And I picked it up and moved it. And Leah and y'all were talking about how I just picked up a snake. And Leah said, yeah, I got bit by a cobra.
Yeah. That's what it was. Because you picked up a rat snake or
Yeah,
something in
and
your
I-
bushes and it bit you that day.
Yeah, and then I moved it in the back
Wait,
of it.
hold on just
Yeah.
a second. Where did you get bit?
It was just on the hand. It wasn't that big.
no.
By
Just on the hand.
Yeah, by the rat snake.
So
By the rat snake, not the cobra. The rat snake bit him on the hand, which led
yeah,
to the whole
but
thing.
where
about
did
him.
you get bit by the cobra?
The first time on the leg.
The first time he's been twice. Because I told him, I said, like, that's the story. Like, I was like, if I've ever been bitten by a cobra, like, that's the story I lead with all the time. Like, when my kids
I
grow
don't
up
even tell people my name first. I'm just
like when my kids grow up and they're like, oh, and they start complaining about how I'm like, you think this is bad? I've been bitten by a cobra.
What's Leah's fear that I'm going to be like with Drake? I'm going to be that old man that's like, well, when I in Africa, I had to walk barefooted and getting bit by snakes. I don't do that a lot. I don't know why she gets that.
Yeah, that's hilarious. But
That's
you,
funny.
so you had to tell us about that, but obviously,
tell us how you got to that situation.
Yeah, because I know, which I'll let you tell, but I know you was in the Peace Corps.
Yeah.
And Africa wasn't the only place you
No,
went, right?
no.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I can. That for the Peace Corps, yes, that was the only place I went. But my how I got there, I guess, was kind of interesting because I went to Bible college. I was studying to be a pastor, right?
Yeah.
So I come to graduate, and most of the time everybody's like mission trips, missionary,
Right.
and I personally didn't feel called to that. Like I don't.
Me neither.
Yeah. And I had been in this Christian bubble for 4 years. I knew I wanted to travel. I knew I wanted to help people, and people were like, "Hey, the Peace Corps, the government sends you. It's kind of like missionary work minus like." I mean, I could still talk about my faith, right? Like they're not going to tell me I can't talk about it, but like the main focus was like going over their help. So I signed up. I actually got a lot of grief from that. I wouldn't say necessarily my church, but like some of my peers at college, they were like, "You should be doing missionary work." Like they're trying to convict me like that.
Because is that is Peace Corps is that more like humanitarian type stuff?
Yeah,
okay.
I was doing fish farming. So when I signed up, they said, "Hey, you're going to go to some place in the Caribbean, teach fish farming." Makes perfect sense. Next to the ocean, I get ready to leave, and they're like, "We're sending you to Africa in a landlocked country, and you're going to teach this." And I'm like, "That makes perfect sense."
Yes.
So that's how I got to Africa.
So what were you doing? So what? So you were going to do the fish farm. Is that what you did in Africa?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That
that's
is
what
okay.
I mean, I did other things. Like they don't really care. Like yes, fish farming was my main thing, but I worked in the hospitals. I worked in the school. It's just kind of like, hey, be a good person,
right?
And,
Yeah.
Make a difference and stuff like that,
and like learn the culture and all that kind of
stuff,
stuff,
the language, and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, can you?
Very, very little.
What was it?
It's Tumbuka. It's part of the Bantu language. I think right now only like 400,000 people speak it, so it's not like
really.
Yeah, but so like
That's interesting.
The Bantu language, there's multiple dialects. There's like Bimba, Tumbuka, Nyanja. I mean, there's a whole bunch. And
is this the one where they do the clicks and stuff?
No, that's in Namibia. No.
Dude, that is so wild to hear those guys do that. Like like I've watched YouTube videos like where they, they just they're doing it. Just to show people how to do it, and they're like, well, how do you say this? And they do it. And I don't even know how they're doing the click while they're talking. You know what I mean? Like it's
probably because they were raised doing it. I mean,
I'm sure,
it's nothing to them.
Yeah, way to ruin it, Tommy.
Yep.
Growing up with it.
I was trying to make it sound like they had a special power or something. Tommy's over there like, oh, I'm sure everybody is.
Well, I mean, it's just like we talk here, country.
That's true. That's true. It is a dialect in itself. Yeah. So anyway, so you were there doing all that, and so what all did you do when you were there?
So get there, first 3 months. They call it like boot camp, but it's really not boot camp, right? It's the Peace Corps. We had to be able to ride our bikes, right? That's a big deal because that's how you get around. So pass my language test. And they do teach you how to fish farm. I have to pass that. Boom, get all that done. And they send you out to the village, and I'm in the bush. It was about 10 miles from the nearest city, which was Lundazi. Wow. So like I had lived in a mud hut. I had a thatch roof. I didn't have running water. I didn't have power. I had a chimbuzi. That's the outhouse. That's what they.
I was about to say, I have no idea what that is, but it sounds cool.
Yeah, that is where the snake. The cobra bite happened was in the chimbuzi. So,
boy,
man,
yeah,
God,
and
can't even go to the what do you call it?
Chimbuzi, chimbuzi.
Yep. Can't even go to the chimbuzi in peace.
And I catching you where your bridges down,
man.
And the thing is, like they tell you, like that was part of their training. They told us, like, hey, if you go to the toilet, the chimbuzi, whatever you want to call it, snakes hang out in there. And tons of volunteers told us horror stories about like there was a snake in there and. They got bit, other kinds of snakes. Somebody said they fell in there because it's just like a cement floor, and somebody was in there, and I guess it gave away, and they fell in it, and they were stuck in there for a couple of days.
That'd be terrible.
That was my biggest fear. Like snakes didn't bother me. It was like I don't want to go to the bathroom and fall into it and get stuck.
God, dude. And be stuck in there for days.
Yeah.
It reminded me from that one of the Rambo movies. You remember when they were dunking him in that thing and he comes out and all the leeches on him and stuff? I don't remember what Rambo that was, but it was a good one.
That was my biggest fear.
Yeah, I'd be terrified.
Yeah.
I'm terrified to go in some porta potties sometimes.
Yeah. So that's that. I can go into that. I guess also once I got to my village, this was kind of an eye-opening thing to me. I guess when most people think of Africa, they just think of like animals roaming everywhere. Right? That's not the case. There's not just lions and elephants and giraffes. It's not a lot of wildlife. Like if you're not living on a game preserve, there's not a lot of wildlife. Like,
really?
Yeah. I had like a hippo come in. I had an elephant one time, but nothing. I did see a lion, but that was because I went on a trip. one never came into the village. Like the most dangerous thing was like a hyena. That was like the stuff that we would have.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't fool no hyena.
So yeah, like telling the snake story, it wasn't just like there was just tons of wildlife around me all the time and stuff like that. So it's like so the snake story, the cobra story.
Yeah.
It was in the middle of the night, woke up, nature calls, happens normally or whatever.
Yep.
I walk out my door, I walk inside my Chimbuzi, do my business, not thinking of anything because I don't know, I've done this tons and tons before. I walk out, and when I walk out, I felt something. I was like, what was that? It didn't hurt, but it didn't feel good, and that's when I looked down and I saw it, and it was like raising up and just it was ticked off.
So so straight up, raised up cobra, flared out head type deal.
Yeah.
Oh my, I'd have died from a heart attack.
Interesting fact, there was a game that the kids played in the village where they would throw rocks at it. Like they would want it to stand up and throw rocks at it, and whoever hit the cobra won. I never partaked in that because I just thought that was but that was
You
their
made one mad enough already.
that was their entertainment. I saw them do it all the time. It was like they would just get it mad and start throwing rocks at it.
Well, there was that video floating around. I don't know if you've seen it. That guy, he like walks into a room and it's like full of cobras, and he has that little, like sheet of something that he's waving around to keep them from striking his leg. But one of them struck at that mat, and like he turned around and that thing was raised up and he just smacked it on top of the head. And I was like, oh my gosh.
So, I mean, that was kind of my reaction too. Like when it bit me, like my first thing was just, I mean, it was gone. Like I hit it, there was a stick next to me and I just beat the crap out of it. Cause that was just my natural reaction. Like you hurt me, I hurt you.
Yes. You reap what you sow.
So, and like it didn't initially hit me at first. Like I just got bit by a snake, right? Like something that like kills people and all that kind of stuff. And I don't really run into my hut, but I just go in there and I start thinking, I'm like, what do I do now? Right? Like I'm in the middle of nowhere. Like
I can't train you for this.
Yeah. I can't call 911 and like come get me or anything like that. And Peace Corps, I mean, I can call like the main building in the Capitol, but I mean, it's going to take them like 7 hours to get to me. Like, I mean, I'm dead by then, right? Like if I've got venom coursing through my veins. So I just get on my bike and I start riding, and I get so sick riding. I get sick. I have to stop my bike. I throw up. I'm writing a letter to my mom and my dad. Like, I'm like, this is it. Like, hey, I'm sorry. I'm writing a letter to my friends. I get back on my bike, I pedal some more, I throw up. I'm getting kind of emotional. I'm like, this is it. They're gonna find me, dead on the side of the road in this country that I don't know.
Terrifying.
I get to the hospital in the town Lundazi that I'm at, and I tell the doctor, hey, I've been bit by a cobra, blah blah this, and I'm panicking at this point. Like it's been about. I used to get around my bike really fast. I don't know how it seemed like a long time to get there. I can't tell you. I just knew it took and I was like, well, this is it. Like I don't have much time. And the doctor looked at me and he laughed. He was like, you would be way worse shape. He was like, it's probably a dry bite. The fact that I was like, well, I was throwing up. And he was like, yeah, because you're nervous because you got bit by a snake.
Right? You just got bit by a cobra, dude.
And so, like, I don't know, like, after that, like, my fear of snakes just kind of went away. Like, I was just kind of like, well, whatever. Like, yeah.
I mean, like, once you've been bit by a cobra, I mean, what's a gray rat snake?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
that's the truth.
Oh, look at that. Look at him. He's just a biting me. He's, he's fine.
Yeah.
I about crapped in my pants earlier this year when I opened the door to one of our units and there was one cold up in there.
God.
Yeah.
No, I don't do snakes. That's the devil's hand puppet.
Well, as long as they're, like I tell you, as long as they're over there and they let me know they're over there and they're going another way, whatever.
Well,
do you think?
I will say
if they jump out on me, they getting drawed on.
Oh, yeah. I will say I joined a Facebook group, since I started a new job and I knew I was going to encounter or whatever.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be able to like identify, the different kinds of snakes, that we have around here. And predominantly is, like rat snakes. We have copperheads, cottonmouths, rattlesnakes and stuff like that. So I wanted to be able to identify them, and actually have learned a lot in that group. And like the Midland water snakes, like that's another real common one that we see. And so I've learned a lot in that group and watching the people, like listening to them and like how to, you know what I mean? Like just if you're around them or if you see them or whatever, like what you should do and kind of how snakes generally act. And I will say this, I'm not going to get real close to them, but I'm not as like, kill everyone you see kind of thing. You know, like now it's a venomous snake and it's around my house. I mean, obviously I have a 2-year-old, so you know what I mean? So like that's your life is over. You know what I mean? But like you know, non-venomous, you know, probably relocate or something like that. Because we had one out in front of the church one Sunday morning. Tommy comes in there. He's like, I don't know what kind of omen this is. He's like, but there's like a 4-foot rat snake on the ramp out here. I was like, y'all better get that devil out of here.
We went out there with a garbage can, and I turned around and Sarah's standing behind me with a shepherd's hook, like we're about to do something.
Like a 5-foot tall shepherd's staff in here.
We got him in the garbage can. Justin's trying to find us something to put over so we can take him back over here. And that thing starts, just like you said, he raised up out of there and looked. And I was like, bro, you just get back in there. I'm telling you, I'm trying to do you a favor. Just get in.
Trying to save your life. Yes. Don't make me end it.
It was something.
Anytime I see like a black king snake in our yard, like, you know, I'll tell Lee, she's like, why didn't you kill it? And I was like, well, if I kill that, then the snakes that we don't want are going to be in the
because
yard.
they eat venomous snakes. Yeah.
I'd rather that dude hang around than, you know, like a copperhead or something like that.
For sure. Absolutely. So that's crazy. So that was the when you went to the bathroom. So that was the first time you got bit then.
Yeah, and you know
I got to know the second one. I haven't heard the second. I haven't heard that one. That one's new to me.
I think I have. I don't know if I've told you this. I don't like talking about this because I tell Leah like I don't want it to come across bragging.
Yeah,
but I did.
Bro, come on.
I did kill 2 crocodiles. And the witch doctor in my village gave me a tattoo. So, like, the tribe that I was, they would have a tattoo that represents how many crocodiles you killed.
Yeah.
And so I killed 2 crocodiles, and before I left, the witch doctor was like, I want to give you these tattoos. And I was like, yeah, sure. You know, at first I was kind of, like, hesitant about it, but I was like, when else am I ever going to have this opportunity?
Exactly.
Right, yeah, no kidding.
So he gave me 2 of the tattoos. But those 2 stories aren't as... When I tell people like, "Hey, I killed 2 crocodiles," it wasn't me by myself. It was like a group
of y'all,
you know.
Did you just like you did the killing the killing blow or the killing part or whatever?
So the first one, there was like a river next to, you know, the river that everybody in my village used. You'd go get water, you'd go bathe in it, you know, all that kind of stuff. And this was kind of sad, but it was just a part of reality there. The crocodile was in there, ate 2 kids, right? So like, it's got to go. It's got to go at that point. And I won't forget the day that they were going to get rid of it. The men in the village came to me like, "Hey, do you want to help?" And I was like, "Sure." You know, like when else am I going to have this opportunity, right? Like, And I was also just kind of curious, like, how are we going to do this without a gun, right? Like that was my thing. Like,
that is. That's some straight up survival stuff.
Yeah. So 2 guys, they get out. I just call it a village canoe. I don't know what other way to call it, but it was it looked like a canoe, but it was very, like you couldn't really even sit down. It was
like slim, very slick. Like
it was kind of like a surfboard. I mean, there was like a crevice where you could sit down, but it was not a canoe like we know it. Anyway, 2 guys get out there, and they had some village rope, which is just like twine or like roots and stuff that they've woven together to make this rope.
Yeah,
and they lasso it around the crocodile and they hightail it back to the bank, and they tell us to start pulling, and we just, you know, pull this thing in, and then all of the men in the village just jump on it and just beat it to death, rock, stick, and we just go to town on this crocodile.
What?
Yeah.
They lassoed an alligator.
Yeah.
Drug it on land and then beat it to death with rocks.
That was
I mean, that's what you get.
Wow, man, that is intense.
And so like when they did that, like they just hopped onto it, and I'm like, what do I do? And they're like, help us.
Get up in here. Grab a rock. Yeah.
Didn't you say you were from Alabama?
Yeah. So that was crazy.
That is crazy. So y'all did that twice.
Yeah. The second time, which I don't think the crocodile did anything.
Yeah.
But hey, it was still in where they were drinking.
Like like all the family and everybody goes to do.
Yeah.
But do they eat it?
No. So that was really, I mean, most of the time, like over there, anything that they killed, hey, we ate. Like, like the Tumbuka people were known for, it's so weird. Like they have cousinships with other tribes.
Yeah.
And so like the Timbuktu people, they're called the Bimbas, which is their cousin tribe, called them rat eaters because there's a lot of rats in the field, and that's what the Timbuktu people would eat.
Oh, wow.
And they call them the monkey eaters because they would go kill monkeys and so
Right.
that's just kind of like how it is, right? You kill it, you eat it.
Yeah.
But reptiles, that's bad juju. You don't eat
Really?
snakes, crocodiles. You don't eat that. It's gonna be for them that was like bad magic. You eat it, some bad.
Really?
So
Yeah.
yeah, killed the crocodile. You just bury it and don't have anything else to do. You bury it deep too because
I mean, they wouldn't even use the skin or anything. Nothing.
nothing. It's
Well,
all of it's bad juju.
I get it.
Wow.
And this was interesting. They, I would sit around the fire and they would have, they would tell stories, right? Like every culture has their stories, but instead of werewolves, they had were-crocodiles. So like people didn't turn into werewolves over there; they turned into were-crocodiles, which I think is just way cooler. Like if I had to pick one,
we're about to look it up.
yeah,
No doubt.
yeah,
That's so wild, like, and two, it's just because, where people living in America, like people just don't
It's
even
totally
understand.
different culture.
Yeah.
I mean,
Not only that, like people are really just so sheltered here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like we
100%.
have no idea. Like, I mean, I would have never known a lot of that stuff had, not being in the Coast Guard and going to places like Haiti and like seeing like how they do things there. You know what I mean? Like in the places they live and, and learning about them and and all that kind of stuff.
they're probably a lot happier than all us too. I can guarantee you that.
Well, it depends.
yeah. It's like the day to day. Like I would say, like the happiness is it's better in the fact like all they have is each other, right?
Right,
Like, you
yeah.
don't need, but like I mean, it's tougher. Like food's not always there, water's always there. That's not,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
and
that was because like I heard we listened to a guy and he went and lived with a tribe. I can't remember. Is it the Tanzanians or something like that?
yeah. I mean, I know where. Yeah,
It was. I think it was one of those, anyways. But that's what he was talking about, though. He was talking about like how like those people are not stressed out and stuff like we are.
Yeah.
It's like because they don't go to work.
Yeah.
They don't have jobs like. Finding food and doing those types of like that, that's what they do.
Yeah.
Like they live, like living is their job. Like that's what they do. And he was like, so, he's like, when it's, they rest a lot during the day when they have, in between, I guess, hunting and doing that kind of stuff. And I was just like, sometimes I'm like, that actually sounds kind of peaceful compared to what we do.
you always help your neighbor. Like that's part. I mean, if you don't have something, somebody in the village is going to help you out. Like one time during rainy season, like it flooded real bad, and I didn't have any food. Like I would usually go to the market, buy beans, peanut butter, stuff,
Right.
just to cook or whatever. I didn't have food, and I couldn't cross. Like there was no way I was crossing the river into town because it was just flooded, and I was going to get swept up, and whatever. Nobody was going to town. And I mean, I wasn't the only one that didn't have food, but food was scarce. So everybody would just come together, whatever you had, you cooked.
That's so wild.
And eventually I paid it back, right? I made it into town. I had money. I bought food. I had people over. I gave it back. But nobody cared that I didn't have anything. It was just, I was in the village. I needed to be taken care of. Here's food.
That
and
is so crazy.
I don't think, you don't get that. I know like you would help me out, right?
Yeah,
My
yeah,
neighbor and all
yeah,
that
yeah.
kind of stuff, but it's kind of like you have to look for that, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's not like commonplace here. People like looking out for each other and like, that's like, we've talked about this, like one of the things we like about our little corner here, like with the people that we know, because we, at least in our little corner right there, we all help each other out if we can, or like bringing food to each other and, just doing just little stuff, like the guy that lives next to me yesterday come over and helped me cut that big limb down, so I mean, like I couldn't have done that by myself, what I mean? That kind of stuff. Yeah, it is. And, and like once I got out of the service, like I think that was the thing I missed the most.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the service, like you have that, like everybody has everybody's back, you know what I mean? Like, so when you're out, you don't really have to worry about, you know what I mean? Because like the person next to you, like, hey, I've got you covered, or if you're out and about, I mean, there was several times, guys, like either I didn't have money or whatever the case may have been, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was the camaraderie and all that.
Yeah.
It's not the same.
Yeah, and that was like a driving force. Like my experience in the Peace Corps, that was a driving force for me to join the military also.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I was like, I miss I mean, there was other things like I need college paid for, or,
Right,
you know, all that kind of stuff. But like that was also I miss being a part of something bigger.
Right.
you
Yeah.
know?
And that's, and see, I think I still miss that
Yeah.
sometimes. You know what I mean? Like, I was talking to a friend of mine the other day. He messages me every year because he's an LSU fan.
Mm-hmm.
So every time LSU and Auburn play, like, he always messaged me, and we were stationed together. Our story was funny because we were stationed together, and I was an E3, he was E4. So he was, I reported to him
Yeah.
originally. And then, like, we both got out and we came back in the reserves, and we ended up stationed in the same place together as reservists. Then I became an E5 and he was still an E4. So I mean, it didn't last long. Like, he made E5 shortly
Yeah.
thereafter, but, like, we used to joke around with each other. I used to boss him around,
Yeah.
just picking fun or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do. He was telling me the other day, he was like, yeah, I've thought about going back in the reserves. I was like, it's crossed my mind. I was like, but at the same time, I'm like, I'd have to shave. I don't think I could shave.
There are days that I'm just like, I miss it, but I don't miss it that much. I miss the people. Is like what it is.
That's what I told him. I said, I miss the people and the friends. I
Yeah.
don't miss the politics and
Yes.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't. The one thing I miss, I think the most is like, because one thing I found that's like different out and out here is a lot of advancement in the civilian world has to do a lot with who you know.
Yeah.
And I don't like that.
Yeah.
Because in the military, it's not that way. It's like you take a test, you either study for it and you score real high, and you've either done deployments or you've been on ship, you get extra points for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's mostly based on your performance.
Yeah,
you know?
my first corporate job was at a bank, and that was an eye-opening thing because it was very cutthroat. It was very much like you had to like screw somebody over to get ahead, and
Yeah.
that's not who I am. Because in
No.
the military, like if I fail or if my buddy fails, we all fail.
everybody.
So
yeah.
I want everybody to succeed, right? Like
Right.
I want everybody to get that promotion. I want everybody to be the best. And
Yep.
luckily the place I'm at now is not like that. It's very much like
that's
that whole
good.
like help each other out and
Yeah.
all that kind of stuff.
Well, that's like the place I'm at. That's like they used to be, I think, that way, but
Yeah.
like there's a lot of new management that some younger people
Yeah.
have moved into management, and they're all like, "Hey, listen, it's not this department versus that department. Like, we all work for the same company,
Yeah.
and if we don't produce and we don't, meet the goals and do that kind of stuff, like none of us have a job.
Yeah.
So like we're all on the same team,
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, I like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I was that way on the ship. I was like, when we were on the ship, it wasn't like engineering department, deck department, and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It was like, no, we're all on the same ship.
Yep.
Like if something happens to this ship and we're not all on the same page, like we all die. you know what I mean? Like, or we all are drowning or whatever the case may be. So like, that teamwork,
Yeah.
was a big thing.
Did you have this, you being a pastor, when I came back and started going back to church, like that was one of the biggest struggles for me was like, I never realized how, a lot of times like looking out for themselves, right?
Oh,
like in the
yeah.
church, even in the church. And I was like, man, or people in the church, I get everybody has problems. I'm not trying to belittle problems or whatever, but it's like I just had experience overnight where I saw like people in real need, and it's
Right.
like, hey, your car's broke down. Like, I think God cares, but like there's
Sure.
other things in the world that like
Right.
you live in a first world country. Like your car
Absolutely.
breaking down is not
that big,
big of a deal, right? Yeah. And that was a real struggle, and I still struggle that with now, because I know not everybody's had the same experience, as me, and you probably know that, like
Yeah.
being in the Coast Guard and stuff like that. So like when I'm, befriending somebody and talking about that, it kind of gets hard to relate sometimes.
Oh,
'cause
yeah.
It's like you were saying, like the rest of the world lives like how those people in Africa live, how those people in Haiti live. Like
Yeah.
how we live is not normal. It's not
No,
normal.
it's not. And that's why I tell people all the time. I said, like we are so, and at times I use the word blessed because that is a big portion of it. But we are also so spoiled.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That like you said, I mean, like your car breaking down, like that's a major life event or something.
Yeah.
Which in reality, it's really not. You know what I mean? And stuff like that is crazy. And like you talking about that, like sometimes that's things that I struggle with. Like when I hear people like, oh well, I don't want to go to church because of come up with an excuse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like whatever it is, I'm tired or I'm this or that, or I don't have time, or like I don't want to show up to, small groups, or I don't want to get involved, or I don't want to do this, or I don't want because I don't have time and I don't whatever.
Yeah.
And then like I sit there and say to myself, I'm like, that is such a lame excuse. You know what I mean? I was like, because I work a full-time job.
Yeah.
I'm a full-time college student. I'm a pastor. I have a family. We do podcasts. We do, I was like, and I still, guess what? I still show up every Sunday and preach most of the time. I've taken a couple of breaks here lately, but
yeah, it's like, are you, if you're passionate about something, you're going to
do it. Yeah, right.
Like, and I feel definitely here in the South, like Christianity is sometimes more of just like our culture. It's not a faith. It's your culture.
Yeah,
right?
it's what grandmom did.
That
What
may be a
dad
big
did.
understatement right there.
I think it's a really big understatement. We've talked about that before too. Like, and because like I've told him that, I said, I think that's part of the problem, and that's like for me, that's why I'm so drawn to like the apologetic stuff, is because like I said, we have a bunch of Christians that don't even know why they believe what they believe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I was like, and that's why, there was a statistic that come out. I think it was nearly 80%. It was like 70 something, high 70s of kids that grew up in church. Once they go to college, that 70 something percent of them end up leaving the faith because they encounter an atheist, an agnostic, or somebody like that that's very well educated.
Yeah.
They know why they believe what they believe.
Yeah.
And then all they've got to do is come in and just toss out a couple of difficult questions that can't be answered because they haven't been taught other than, Jesus loves me, this I know, for the Bible tells me so.
And everybody knows that.
Everybody
right?
knows that, and so most of them end up leaving the faith because then they have things that question their faith. Which I think you and I have talked about this before. Like, okay, well, did you ever really have a true faith then? You know what I mean?
Was this true to you, or was it just like like you said with your grandmother and grandfather? So you believed it, And
I go to church because they went to church.
Hey, there. No harm. Free country, you can believe what you want,
right?
Whatever. But like, I think if you're going to be a Christian, you need to know what you're going to believe.
You need to be able to not only know it, but you need to be able to convey it.
Yes.
You need to be able to like at least be able to, like I tell people, like even if you don't have an answer, you should still be confident enough though in your belief that like, hey, I may not have the answer to that, but I'm still confident in my faith.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, hey, if you're talking to somebody who's a different faith and it might something differently, believe something differently than you do, it's not going to rock your faith, right? Like, hey, I don't have the answer, but I'm sure there is an answer because I have studied and I know that typically there is an answer.
Yeah.
But it's like people don't even get to that point, you know?
Right. Yeah, because a lot of times, people try to find like things that are similar between faiths, and they're like, oh, well, they practice, like Buddhists, like they practice peace and love and that kind of stuff. And, we do as Christianity. And then that leads into, well, are we really so different then? You know what I mean? And I'm like, and that's what usually leads people down that road of, well, I don't really know. Why do I believe this and they believe that? Why are they wrong and I'm right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people can't reconcile that. And so then they're like, well, I'm just going to believe peace, love, and whatever, I'm going to become a Taoist or whatever.
I don't want to, this might be a touchy subject here, but like,
here.
I don't know. This is about Alabama football. So
Oh,
I know,
Lord
like,
Jesus.
I just noticed, right? Like, I don't have any skin in the game. I don't care. I'm not a big, I don't know. I didn't get that Southern gene in me. So,
Right. Yeah.
When they lost, I noticed that there was a lot of people posting like scripture around like Alabama losing football. And I just was like, I don't think when Paul was talking about suffering, he was talking about losing a football. Like,
Dude, it's ridiculous.
Like, it was just like,
it's absolutely ridiculous.
like where,
It was ridiculous because he's 100% true.
I know.
like where, don't you see what your idol is? Like you saying that, like, don't you see where, and there's nothing wrong with enjoying football.
Sure, yeah.
I'm just saying like,
Well, that's, like, and my mom and I have talked about this before because she went to a Alabama football game this year.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm an Auburn fan, but like I don't even really watch it anymore. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, I've got other things I could be doing, or whatever. I'll keep up with the score, on my phone or something, but I really don't even watch it that much anymore. But, like my mom was like, like when she was at the stadium and she was just talking about like how wild it was, and like how just everybody was just, you know, all dressed in Alabama stuff and just hollering and yelling and so passionate about whatever. And she told me, she was like, and I was sitting up there with my sister, her and my sister went, and she was like, and I looked at your sister and I was like, you know, what would it be like if people acted this way for church?
Yeah.
And I was like, church would be amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, church, it would be awesome. I said, but instead you come in here and preach like a fire message, and the best you get is a,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like people won't even say like amen out loud and stuff anymore.
I don't
you
know. That 2-year-old did Sunday. He went, yeah.
Well, that's it. But like, those are my biggest champions at church. I have my daughter that's almost 3 and another 3-year-old, and they run around and come on the stage and, you know, whatever.
Man, that was
like,
so funny.
They're my biggest fans.
Mom said, "Oh, I heard it. I thought it was somebody." I said, "No,
No.
it was the little gang
Child,
of children that run around."
That's why I tell people all the time. I was like, you know, like some people have made statements before about, you know, letting kids run around like that. I'm like, hey, I'm all for kids running around and
man, that's
stuff
fun.
like that. I said a church that don't have the sound of children in it is a church that's dying. You know? So, but yeah, that stuff is
You know, and it's not just Alabama football. It's
it's
other things. It was just like the most recent thing.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
like I guess like my experience, my life experience, I can't help but look at that and be like, that's the stupidest thing for you to get upset about, right?
Yeah.
Like it was a football game. Like I get
Absolutely.
it. People tried really hard. I'm not like downplaying the
Right.
athletes or anything like that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying like, let's not quote scripture about suffering when somebody loses.
talking about football.
Yeah, let's just.
It always reminds me of that Melissa Daughtry, right? Isn't it Melissa Daughtry?
Daughtry.
Yeah, Melissa Daughtry. Have you ever seen her? She's an apologist. She has a YouTube channel. She makes all these funny videos like that, and she does one with like a modern day believer and a first century believer.
Yeah.
And like them having a dialogue together, and she plays both roles. You know, and like that first century person, they're like, you know, she was like, so how's it going? They're like, well, you know, just heavy persecution right now, you know, like, because it would have been in the time of probably Nero and stuff, you know, and just heavy persecution right now. And, you know, we did rescue a couple of kids, but that just means more mouths to feed and, you know, that kind of stuff and whatever. Like they're having this dialogue back and forth. And she was like, oh, yeah, I know what you mean about heavy persecution. And she names off something stupid like that. And she was like, yeah, and it was so hard for me to deal with that. And and it pans back to the first century, and they're like, what's that? You know, like, and then when she finds out that, like, we have, you know, like the modern believer has the Bible, like, has the whole Bible. Yeah. And the first century person's like, you mean to tell me you have our Lord's words, like, all in one place? You know, like, I'm sure oh my gosh, if I had that, I would be reading it all day, every day. I'm sure you read it all of the time.
You're like, well, maybe.
That's basically what she said. She was like, well, I have my little Bible study. You know, I do here and there, you know what? And it's just like,
study it. What does that mean?
Right.
Her newest one, the New Age Vegan.
That one
It's
is
hilarious.
It's so funny. It is so funny. Anyways, but yeah, so I was going to say, I'm going to go back to the when you were there in Africa, did you ever, how did you know, because I heard you talk about like the witch doctor or stuff, like, and I don't know what that means, you know. I mean, obviously people hear witch and they're probably like, oh my God, he got tattooed by a witch, you know what I mean? Like,
no, I mean, it was like a medicine man, right?
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
he did practice juju, like that.
Right.
That's the
Same thing as a shaman, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
but that's like their culture.
That's their culture.
Yeah.
I mean, I obviously there were people there that were Christians. They're like, hey, you know, because I mean, some of it was, but I mean, he became one of my best friends. He was a cool guy. Like, I also want to know about this stuff, right?
Sure,
like, it's something it's not in our culture. I don't go outside and see a witch doctor. Right?
Well, that's one of the things another thing talking about that, since you brought it up, that's another thing that modern day believers don't do is they don't study other religions. You know, like I've studied Islam, I've studied, you know, Buddhist, I've studied Hinduism, you know, because like you said, I mean, you want to know about what they believe. Yeah. Because if you're ever going to really be effective, then you have to know what they believe.
Yeah, and part of it, you know, also like people are just like scared of something that's not really that big of a deal, right?
Yeah,
like I think that you know, and there were a lot of Peace Corps volunteers that weren't believers that were also scared of witch doctors just because, you know, it's a scary, they do some weird things, right? Like,
it's weird to us.
yeah. They one time somebody had malaria in the village and they danced all night, and I got so mad because his house was right behind my house and he was just banging on the drum, and I was like, shut up and take a pill. Like
Go get some aspirin.
yeah. That's not going to do anything.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny.
So like, I mean, it was stuff like that, but it was really cool. The coolest thing, there's this legend over there called Nami Nami, right? And it's like a snake god. And it, so the Zambezi River goes through Africa. And so apparently like Nami Nami lives in here, and it's a story they tell kids, like, and the witch doctor told me this, like, if you go there and you're alone, Nami Nami will get you, he'll eat you, and all that kind of stuff.
I ain't going there.
Yeah. One time I was, and like, you know, he told me that, and I, you know, it was a cool story, and I was talking to my host family, the family that kept me, and I was like, man, it's so weird that y'all believe in that. And like the day before that, I had told him about Christmas and how we celebrated it, and he looked me in the face and said, y'all believe some guy comes down your chimney and leaves you presents? And then that's when it clicked, like, they don't believe in this. This is like a cautionary tale, right? Like, this is like, don't let your kids go play in the river, because there's stuff in there that's going to eat you, right?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, cool.
That's what, and we basically tell our kids, sleep with one eye open because there's a fat dude coming in the house tonight.
Yeah.
You know?
He was like, he was like, what's the difference? A snake god that eats people and a man in a red? It's the same thing. That's what he was. I was like, okay, yeah, I get that.
Touche.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So in the middle of all that, like, did you ever get a chance to like share your faith or anything?
Yeah.
Like how would you do that? You know, like
I mean, you know me, I'm pretty open. I love talking about that stuff. I think people, you know, they say you shouldn't talk about religion, politics, or I don't know what the third. I think you should, right? That's how you learn from people. Obviously, there's a correct way to do it.
Sure.
But I mean, that's just how I was. I was open. I talked to everybody. I got to witness to my fellow Peace Corps volunteers. I made friends with this guy. They called him Kentucky John, hardcore atheist. He was a philosophy major.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So like, it was really cool experience with, you know, I got to witness in my village, right? Because that was, but it was more so like my fellow Peace Corps volunteers. So during Thanksgiving, we would all come to the Peace Corps house, our provincial house, which is like where we all get together and have Thanksgiving, you know, just because sometimes you just need to be around people from your other culture.
Right, yeah.
And I was there for 2 years, and they, you know, nobody was really I mean, there was Christians there, right? Like I was one, there was other, but we weren't the majority. But it was cool because they let me lead the prayer. Like that they would do that, but like they just knew that was important to me, and they did that. And one of those nights, Thanksgiving nights, it was me and John, and we were sitting out on the front porch, and he was a really good guitar player. You know, we had one of our deep talks about like, is there a God? Is there not a God, or whatever? And he started singing hymns, and he was like, man, I love playing hymns. And we just sat there and sung hymns, right? Like, and I would hope, you know, he never came to me like, hey, I'm a believer. But I felt like I left some kind of impact on him. He made an impact on me, right?
Sure,
it made me, you know, sometimes we think only Christians can do good things. Anybody can do good things, right? Like what are your, it's what your motives are, right?
Right,
like, you know, and I am a Christian. I believe like our way is the right way. I'm not like trying to downplay that, but anybody can do good, right? Like it's not, oftentimes in the church, we paint people who are different, that don't believe the same thing we do, as evil. They're not necessarily evil. They're just normal people, you know, that haven't heard the truth, right?
Yeah, right. And some of it too is culture.
Culture.
Right? Like where they grew up, how they grew up, you know, like you said, they haven't heard the truth, or, you know, like they believe that their truth is the truth. You know, and so like really, you know, and that can be challenging, you know, and like I say, for your modern, you know, just, you know, what I would call cereal box Christian, you know what I mean? Like most believers can't deconstruct and reconstruct, you know what I mean? Like they can't show, you know, maybe some fallacy in the truth, but like you said, in a loving way, you know what I mean? Not like being like, you're wrong, you're dumb, you know, whatever. You know,
you're
like,
terrible human
there's
being.
a lot of people that do that. Though.
There is a lot of people that do that.
Yeah, you're right.
That's what runs a lot of people off, you know, because we come out and we're like, oh, you're going to hell, you're going to blow the doors wide open, you know, or whatever. When really it's just a simple matter of fact that the biggest chance is they probably just haven't heard the truth,
or had a relationship with somebody that is loving.
Yeah.
That is
right.
it tries to be the hands and the feet of Jesus.
Yeah.
And I just that's one thing that just gripes me so much is just because me and this other person might not believe the same thing, don't mean I can't love him or he can't love me.
Right, yeah. And it don't mean you can't be friends with them is the big thing. You
relationship is one of the biggest things, because you know what? One day that friend might be like, hey, Tommy, you know what? Tell me a little more about this Jesus guy.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, right? Like when we're in those situations, like I tell everybody all the time, like relationship is key.
Yeah.
You know, like if you have a relationship with somebody, even if they do believe differently than you, but if you maintain a relationship with them and they come to find out, like, you know, like, hey, this, I mean, like you said, like this is a good person, you know, like they want to do good, and they find out your motives for like, well, why do you live the way you do? Well, I mean, this is why, you know, and not like I'm out here like trying to convince you or whatever, but I believe, you know, like James talks about, don't be just a hearer of the word, be also a doer.
Yeah.
You know, so, and people always like to say actions speak louder than words, you know, so by living the life that, you know, and Jesus even said to his disciples, he said, love one another as I've loved you. This is how people will know that you're my disciples.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's not like I'm trying to shove it down their throat, but like by building a relationship with them, by investing in that relationship, there's going to come a time. There'll be a moment in that person's life, and it may happen tomorrow. It may happen 10 years from now. But there'll be a moment where they will call on you for, like, they may find themselves in a you know, a difficult situation. You know, I heard John Maxwell one time speaking at a conference, and he shared a story similar to that. He had a friend, a guy that he had encountered and been praying for him. I think he was an atheist, and you know, and he was doing a lot of stuff for him for like free. Like he wasn't trying, and you know, like he's like, the guy was asking him like, what do you want from me? You know, because like this is business, you know, so they're like, people don't do this kind of thing. And he's like, I don't want anything. I just want to be your friend.
Yeah.
You know, like he was like, that's it. And he was like, yeah, you want some. And eventually he told me, he said, well, one day, you know, I hope I can share my faith with you. You know, and he was like, that's it. He said, tell me, John, tell me about your faith. And he was like, no. He said, you're not ready.
Yeah.
You know, he said, and so like they would play golf and they just kept being friends. You know, he said, but like way down the road, I think it was several years down the road, like he calls John, and like his wife has cancer and she's about to, I think she was about to die. And John told him, he said, now you're ready.
Yeah.
You know, and so like he was able to go to his house because they had that relationship. He was able to, you know, tell them about Jesus, led them to salvation, you know, like the whole thing, you know, like that whole story for me, I was like, that's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
Like the relationship part of it.
That's, I mean, I have a, right, I'm a Christian. That's my relationship with God and Jesus. Yeah. That's going to be a part of me. Like I will be friends with anybody.
Sure.
That's just going to, you've got to understand, like that's who I am, and I'm going to share that with you. And you know, I growing in my faith, I've learned, you know, like Romans, right? Romans says, "For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God." Like
sure.
I don't get why certain Christians get on their high horse and like, you know, like, hey, we're better than you,
right?
You're not that much better than
yeah.
that. You know, like the only chance you had at redemption was Jesus, and you took it, right? Like you don't have any authority to speak down on somebody who hasn't known the truth or whatever. And then another thing is like the gospel has impacted my life, and because of that, I want it to impact other people's life, whether they choose to accept it or not. And I'm going to live in a way that does that for my friends that don't believe what I'm going to believe. Like they may never become a Christian. You know what? I'm still going to be a good friend to them. I'm still going to, you know, be what Christ told me to be.
Right, so. Right. Because ultimately there is the factor of free will.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just like you said. I mean, we can, you know, you can tell them, you can share it, you can teach it, you can do whatever, but they can still choose not to receive it. You know, and that the Bible talks about that, and it calls it heart. You know, you harden your heart towards it. Yep. You know, the Israel did that a lot of times. You know what I mean? And even like you were talking about in Romans 3:23, you know, for all of sin and fall short of the glory of God, you know, like that's people got to understand that, you know, that part of it. Yeah. Like you said, like because verse 24 tells us, but we've been freely justified. Yeah. But not because of anything we done.
Yeah, I didn't do anything.
It's because of what Jesus done. You know, so like there you go. I mean, like that's it. You know, you were saved by grace through faith, not by works, so that anyone, you know, so that no one can boast. You know, so it's not. you know, I feel like if people could get to that point where they really just understand, like, just because you go to church, and just because you sit in a seat and whatever, and play the role, play the part, it doesn't mean that you're better than the, you know, Hindu that lives down the street, or the Muslim or the whatever. You know, it doesn't make you any better than those people, you know, or whatever. Now, we may not agree, you know what I mean, on certain issues, but it doesn't mean that, you know what I mean, doesn't mean that we're better, or that we shouldn't friend them, you know, because I think well, I know for sure, like, my dad had a story. His heart doctor was an Indian, you know, from India, and so obviously my dad was kind of like what you're saying. He would always share, you know, his faith wherever he went, you know, and of course, you know, the Indian guy, the doctor, was like, well, you know, basically just agree to disagree, you know, kind of thing, you know, and so and my dad wasn't forceful or nothing, you know, he was very nice to him, but one time my dad had the widowmaker, that one artery was blocked up, you know, and so like they were like, we like emergency, like we gotta right now. And so he was like, they took him in there, and like before I think they put him under or whatever, you know, my dad basically told me, it's like, I'm you know, God will take care of me, kind of thing. And of course the other guy's like, oh, you know, like, we need to get in there, you know. And so he said, like, when they were in there, they had the whatever they used to look at the artery or whatever while they're working. He said, like, before they even got all the way up there, like, he said, it just disappeared. And like the Indian doctor was like, so he said, like, when Dad woke up, he's like, he was in the room, like the heart doctor come in there, he was like, so tell me about this God of yours, you know? Like, you know, and so like Dad, you know, so like Dad was shared the gospel with him. Now, whether he, you know what I mean, received it or not, like that was still a moment, you know what I mean, that he was able to do that. And we've had one of the guys that goes to church here, Chris, he tells a story about, I think I was Indian too, wasn't he, at the gas station?
Yeah.
And he was always asking Chris, like, why he was so happy or something like that or whatever. And just you just had to know Chris, you know, he was just like, I think he just straight up was just like, Jesus, my man, you know, like
he was like, you want to know why? Let me tell you why.
Yeah, so like he just told him, you know, Jesus, you know, and like all this stuff. And I think later on, didn't that guy like actually
he ended up going to church.
He ended up going to church.
He told him,
he was like, man, I went to check out this church, and you know, and all this stuff.
Yeah, he said he wanted him to come here, but it was, you know, far away. So he told him a church to go to over where he lived, and he said, man, everybody was so nice. And you know,
I was like,
and that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Right. But see, like, people that are standoffish wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I just think, like, you know, those are some of the good moments to, you know what I mean, do those things. So, yeah.
I think we all get our chances.
Oh, yeah.
And I say it all the time. I'll get in a conversation just like with me and my buddy over here.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you start talking back and forth about stuff, and you're like, well, let me tell you about this. And then when you start talking about Jesus, they're like, wait, what? They don't expect me to start talking about it. And it just, I think it's funny, and I have fun with it.
Yeah. It's so weird how, like, you know, when people hear Christian, there's this certain type of person it's supposed to look like.
There's a preconception.
There is. Well, that's like, you know, like I've even, you know, like I just try to be me, you know what I mean? And like for a while, like I was, and I don't have anything against dressing up, and if that's your thing, you know, but like I was preaching, and of course, most of the time I'm wearing like blue jeans, tennis shoes, whatever. And of course, big beard, always got a hat on. Like we'd have people on Facebook being like, you should have more respect for the pulpit and, you know, whatever. And I'm just like, but where is that? Where do you find that in the Bible? I was like, please show me where it says Jesus rose early in the morning and put on his dress toga to go to synagogue.
Well, the next Sunday, though, you preached in shorts and flip-flops.
I wore shorts and flip-flops the next Sunday out of spite.
I think that just
Was it childish? Yes. Did it make me feel better? Absolutely.
And that's okay.
It goes back to that whole like cultural thing, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
everybody here in the South thinks a pastor is supposed to look a certain way,
Right.
and talk a certain way, and dress a certain way. A Christian's supposed to, right? Like, hey, you can go be sinful on Saturday, but just make sure you're dressed up nice on Sunday.
Right. Gotta look good.
Yep.
You know, I had with my uncle a couple of weeks ago when Mom had a little bit of surgery, and I was sitting in the waiting room with him for, it was hours. This is my mom's brother, and he's preached all over the place, everywhere. And we got talking about dressing up, or he said, Tommy, he said, I dress up because that's the way I was raised, and I like to do it.
Yeah.
He said, you may tell you a secret. He goes, my prayers when I'm dressed up mean the exact same thing if I'm sitting at home naked in my living room. and he's 81.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like,
Has
man,
the same
just
power.
be good, man.
Yeah.
That's all. Yeah,
Yeah.
same thing. And
That's
I got
so
to laughing
funny.
because he just
Because he said sitting at home naked.
Sitting at home naked. I've not, I've known.
I mean, that's true.
Yeah, it is. I mean,
is.
really. Oh, it's so
Probably
funny.
more, I feel like I probably prayed more powerful when I'm naked. I'm probably in trouble or something.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
That is good.
That's a good one.
Yeah, yeah. So where are we at?
About an hour.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
It's 5:50.
Went by fast.
Yeah.
It did.
It always does. Like, these conversations, like once you get to rolling, the
Yeah.
conversation gets to going.
See, here's the thing though. I'm almost 100% sure we could do a part 2 with him.
Oh yeah, we'll definitely have to, because we didn't even touch
Yeah,
like
we
what
only
he
got
does for
one.
a living now.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
know,
man.
like post Peace Corps and everything.
I can come back and wrap up the story.
We'll do a part 2. Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
let's-
do a part. Well, no, because we'll have part 2. Just letting
we'll
him
have the
share
part 2,
whatever,
yeah.
and then we'll have probably 3 and 4 and 5 when we actually get into eschatology one day.
Oh yeah.
Be down.
Yeah, because him and I have had some great conversations on eschatology.
Yep.
Yeah, and he knows the light.
Yeah, I do.
Well, that's
he
good.
hasn't drank the Kool-Aid.
That's good.
But yeah, so we'll definitely get back together and do that again. Talk about all that stuff will be good.
Cool.
Whenever you get free time.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for having me. I
Yeah,
enjoyed
man,
this.
it's been a lot of
Man,
fun.
it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I hope you guys enjoyed hearing. Which I don't. Did you ever tell us the second Cobra story?
Not
No,
yet. Part 2.
no.
Is that part 2?
I mean, I
gonna
can
be.
wrap that. It's not as interesting as it is. Pretty much the same thing happened, and it
Oh,
was
is that the was it Chimboot?
coming out the same thing coming out of the
Man,
Chimboozes.
you're like way
Chimboozes.
too modest about this stuff. Killed 2 crocodiles, got bit by a cobra,
Twice.
trying to go to the restroom.
Yeah, the second one, it happened in the daytime. That was the only thing that's different. And I didn't freak out as much because I was like, the last one it was nothing to worry about. So I still went to the doctor.
There you go. Y'all
See,
know.
but here's
Y'all
the
know
thing,
why.
you
Y'all know why he lived. Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus was
I would
watching
say
over
so.
Morgan.
Well, I mean, you got to think about it. People, I never hear stories like that.
No,
Ever.
no,
around
you don't.
here. I mean, I'm like,
I'm telling you, the day he told me, he just went on by it, like whatever, and I was like, whoa.
well, I can see why he would. Been talking to him and listening to him for an hour, and I'm like, I can see that.
Yeah, I was like,
Very modest fellow.
Let's back up a couple of sentences.
Yeah.
You can't just go by, I got bit by a cobra, and not act like you just didn't tell me you got bit by a
Well, I
cobra.
mean, you almost want something from it, though. If you're going to go through it, you almost want like a superpower or something.
Yeah,
from
I mean,
it.
that'd be
Oh,
awesome.
man.
Cobra Man. I don't
It'd be cool, though, if you could have killed it and like got its fangs or something and put it on a necklace.
or something.
something.
Well, they'd have to
that
bury
would've
it because of,
Oh, that's
they don't do
true,
anything with
yeah.
reptiles.
I honestly don't know what happened. So the second one, when it bit me, it went off in the bush or whatever. The first one I killed, I came back and it was gone. I'm assuming somebody buried it or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah,
Because
probably.
They probably thought bad juju was laying around,
Yeah.
which I mean, I guess it was, right? Bad.
Well, I mean, I wonder what they thought about you. I mean, you got bit twice.
Yeah.
Man, that was.
I guess that's probably common though. To
Yeah, I
them.
mean, a lot of people got bit. You know,
Yeah.
I saw one that was real gnarly. Somebody got bit, and this was actually before I got into my village. I was still in training,
Yeah.
and I went to a host village. Went in there, somebody had bit, and like their leg was like rotting away. And
Oh, gosh.
they had this stuff called shake. Really, what it was fermented milk. He was an alcoholic,
Yeah.
and he had taken that and made a bandage. So all that fermented
Oh,
alcohol,
I
it was
bet that
gross.
was-
It was
Man.
All right. So
I mean, I don't know
y'all
what
enjoyed
I
that.
don't know what superpower you would get from a cobra though. I mean, would you have an eternal beef for the rest of your life with G.I. Joe? Like, dang you, Joe, I'll get you.
I was thinking like spitting acid or something.
Oh,
that,
yeah,
see,
yeah.
I
Or
would-
you could be like
my look, I would get the first
man,
one.
What was the doctor's name from Spider-Man that turned into the
Oh,
lizard?
the lizard. Dr. Connors.
Dr. Connors. Yeah, yeah. You
There
could be
we
like
go.
Dr. Connors. Yeah.
would be sweet.
So many
That
good
would
things.
be cool.
Well, all right.
Yeah. All right. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We will get back together for episode 2 and probably 3 and 4 and 5. I feel like Morgan could probably be I feel like he could be a regular in and out when he's ready to. Because we like I said, we've had. God, this is like one of our normal conversations.
Well, here's the thing.
really.
Y'all just quit talking in the yard so we can just start recording. Or y'all record it on your phones.
Yeah, we just record it, send it to you.
Well, I'm super thankful you come down, and it was good
it.
to sit here and listen to the story.
It was awesome. Yeah, I hope some of you uncultured
Cobras
swine
to
learned
Jesus
something.
stuff.
I feel much more cultured now.
Well, I learned something
It
today,
is-
though.
Well, no, I will say this before we leave, though. It is super cool. You know what I mean? Hearing those stories and like learning about other cultures and like how they do things and like how they live, because then it really makes you like look at your life and be like, I've got it pretty good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
pretty easy.
I've got it pretty, you know what? I've got a house with air conditioning.
Yeah.
And I don't have to go to a chimbuzi to get bit by a snake while I'm dumping.
I really hope that's like the takeaway where people are like, hey, we've got it pretty good. It's not,
right.
It's not that
That's-
bad.
It's not that bad. Yeah. Let's hope that's the takeaway.
Yeah.
Hope all of you learned a valuable lesson today. No, we love you guys, and we will catch y'all on the next one. See ya.
Have a good one.